Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the book Refuge and welcome to another romance recommendation video. We're going to put this one under the taboo selection on my channel, but I don't necessarily consider BDSM taboo. I think that anyone can be participating in certain aspects of BDSM, but they fall into the obviously kinkier side of things. So this will be the first taboo recommendations that I've done in a long time. But again, I don't consider all of these to be overly naughty or intense, and we'll talk about each one as we go. Some of them are definitely more advanced level than others, but I'm very excited because BDSM books are some of my favorite to read, whether they are a club where all the rules are perfectly in place or whether they are kind of spontaneous situations. Just to be clear, not all of these books that I'm recommending will have things perfectly in a safe, sane, and consensual situation. Take this as your disclaimer, and I'm sure most of the authors at the beginning of their books also warn you of this. You know, don't just go do BDSM with any schmuck off the street. Make sure you're safe, sane, and everything's consensual. But in the fantasy realm of reading, we don't always have to play things that way. But the ones that I tried to pick for this are all going to be ones that include a very safe setup. I don't know another way to say that. So these ones aren't so much off the cuff. If there is one that's like that, I will explain it. But let's go ahead and dive in, and let's start with the physical copies of some books that I own. And I wanted to also make this video because this specific book I'm going to share, I had no idea that it was going to go as viral as it did, and I'm so happy that it did. And that's Praise by Cate. So I was lucky enough to read an arc of this. I had read a few of Cate's books, and I do get Cate recommended to me quite often. And I had, like I said, I've read 3 or 4 of her books before. And when I saw that this book was coming and that there was going to be 4 books in this series, each of them exploring a different kink, and each of them surrounding the Salacious Players Club, which was started by these 4 members who, you know, each have different kinks themselves. And it's going to be this adult entertainment club where anything is available for you. This one in itself has a praise kink. It also has a little bit of degradation, but mostly a lot of praise and a lot of warm and fuzzies going on. And we have our heroine, Charlie, who has an ex-boyfriend that she used to live with, and they are moving out of the place that they live together, and she needs to get her part of the security deposit back. And because she misses the appointment, she ends up having to go to her ex-boyfriend's dad, Emerson, to get that half of her money, because the money went back in his pocket, as it were, because he was the one who I think had paid her ex-boyfriend's half of it. I don't know. Point being, she goes, she gets mistaken for his sub for the day because he, is hiring women to be his submissive. And she ends up on her knees for him before admitting that, I'm your son's ex-girlfriend, and he is completely embarrassed. But he ends up the next day coming to see her and offering her a job for real because he's hoping that he can get closer to his son. When she finds out more about his business and what it does, she discovers that she is very intrigued about being a submissive, specifically his submissive. And he knows that things could get very tricky between the two of them, but they are very much drawn together. And it's beautiful. I feel like this book could be a very good intro to BDSM because we're not getting into anything super rough. There's some orgasm denial, there is public pleasuring, there is a little bit of voyeurism, but mostly it's about submission and praise is what's happening. So highly recommend. Then I want to share Savage Tracker by Maggie. I've talked about this book many, many times. This one has a more intense relationship going on, but a lot of that comes from the fact that our heroine has past trauma. This book for me is BDSM as healing. I've actually made an entire video about BDSM as healing, which I will link. But our heroine was in a forced master-slave relationship where it wasn't BDSM, it was slavery. She was married to this man who abused her for a very long time. She was mistreated, and she has finally escaped him, but she does still crave to be in a dom-sub relationship. She liked being told what to do and taken care of, and she thinks that she's sick and twisted for wanting to belong to someone again after what had happened to her. And then we have Obrecht, who happens to be looking out for her because his family, some of them actually helped her get out of that marriage, and so she's staying in an apartment building that they own, and he's keeping an eye on her, and he actually tops at BDSM clubs. Like, he doesn't consider himself a dom or like a master, but he does top, and he sees these tendencies in her that she's looking to submit, and they end up, you know, going into this relationship where he's saying he's going to teach her what a healthy one would look like, but can he keep his feelings separate? We think not. There's an audiobook for this one, and it's amazing. And then the other is another one I've talked about quite a few times, and this one is a quickie. It's only 170 pages, and that's A Lesson in Blackmail by Cate Robichaux. This one actually has this is actually a like kind of student-teacher relationship because she's the librarian at his school. She's also only like 5 or 6 years older than the hero because she is in her early 20s and he's 18, and he's kind of a bully, and he's always watching her when she's working in the library and he's in there with his friends. And one day he's kind of stalking her, and he follows her home, and then he follows her into the city where he sees her go into a BDSM club. So he follows her in, reveals himself to her, and is going to blackmail her into explaining all this to him. And it turns out that he has some dom tendencies, and he wants to learn how to be her dom. He doesn't just want to be like, oh, she likes to be tied up and like spanked, I'm gonna do it. No, he is immediately entranced. He's very attracted to her, and he's going to go through the steps to do it in a healthy way. This is still extremely sexy. It's still a bit taboo, but it is one that, like, there's not a ton of angst in this book. We get right into everything, and they have an HEA that works out very conveniently for them. But I loved it. This was one of my favorite books that I read in 2021. Yeah, it was one of my faves. All right, then there was a recent read of mine, which was called Kink Camp by A. Anders. This is going to be the start of a series about Kink Camp. So this one's called Kink Camp Hunted. So they're all going to be called Kink Camp and then have a name. So this one is about the kink of primal play. This is novella length. Our heroine is actually a friend of someone who really works at the camp, where they have all different kinks. It's like an adult summer camp where they can come, they can find people, well, they can come in multiple ways, you know what I mean? And they can, you know, explore their different kinks and do them in a place of no shame where there's other people to do it with. And her friend will like volunteer there sometimes, and then one day she sees a listing on the board looking to have a one-night stand that is acting out a primal fantasy where she will go into the woods in an area that has been designated that there is a scene playing out, so everyone else stay out of it, and she will run from her attacker and then get fucked in the woods by him. So it'll be like a CNC act out, but with primal play. And the hero only wants a one-night stand, and she discovers that she wants more out of that. And then we go about, like, he's a complete secret too. Like, he wears a mask, he does her from behind so she never sees him, but there was just this connection with him, so she wants to find out who it is. So that's what the novella is. It was very spicy, very fun. Then I actually have two fanfics to share with you that have BDSM in them. I've read quite a few at this point, but these two were my favorites. So the first one I have to share is Safe Word is Devil's Snare. This is by ShayaLonnie, and this is a Neville and Hermione fanfic. This is also a marriage law, is what it's like called in fanfic or whatever. So Hermione and Neville find out that they could be a perfect match. They are supposed to get married and start working on babies because the magical world needs to be repopulated. And Neville, who has been working as like a dark wizard hunter for the last few years, he has always liked Hermione, but he let Ron, quote unquote, have a shot first. And Ron and Hermione never, you know, they didn't work out. And Hermione is now very willing to try this with Neville. And yeah, he is into BDSM. Let me share that part. So before they, you know, are willing to start dating, he shares the secret that he is a dom. And I love it because he's a very sweet dom, but when things get going, and one of my favorite things about BDSM in the wizard world is the interesting kinds of toys that show up and the ways they could do that. So this one's a pretty quick one too, and it was very enjoyable. And then the other one, which I talk about all the time, I'm obsessed. I can't wait till I can have a bound copy of this one as well. And that is Complications by Ambpersand. And this one is a Draco and Hermione. Hermione has had many failed relationships and has trouble achieving pleasure with a partner. And she has done her research like a smart Hermione would and discovered that maybe being dominated could help her achieve this by having someone, you know, take control of her pleasure for her. So she goes to this club, she is asked to put on a blindfold and go to the meeting place, and then she starts having this conversation with this dom who is going over like a little bit of what he's looking for, and they discuss, you know, what her needs are, and then he proceeds to give her a bit of a taste and give her a little bit of fun time. And then her glamour, which she had on, and her spell fades off. And when the man takes her blindfold off, he realizes that it's Hermione Granger, and the man who just finger banged her was Draco. So she immediately runs away from this, even though he's asking her to stay and calm down, because it isn't safe for her to leave immediately after a scene. There should always be some aftercare, at least talking about it. And on top of that, she disapparates away, which is very dangerous. And so the next day, Draco looks her up at the ministry, where he also happens to be working on a secret project. And he, you know, does aftercare with her, like talks through everything. And she begs him to see her again and to be her dom on the weekends, basically, or one night a week. So they enter into a relationship. And I love this book, this fanfic, so much. You can find both of these fanfics at AO3 Archive of Our Own. Just type in the name and the author of it, and you'll find it, and you can download it to your phone or Kindle. So it's cool. Then we have his Cocky Cellist by McCade. I've talked about a book in this series before. This one is, these are gay romances, and in this one we have this guy is getting cellist lessons from another guy, and then also some BDSM fun times. That's really all there is to say about this. These books, there is a full set of trigger warnings at the beginning of each of McCade's books. So definitely look at those, because I couldn't even list all of them. The one thing I'll say, this is the one that like McCade always makes me laugh, because I'm glad that they put all these trigger warnings in. Absolutely, definitely should be there. But I remember like reading them and there being like, there is like withholding of air, like very specific trigger warnings. And so this whole time I was like, oh, this is gonna have choking and it's gonna this. There's like one scene where I think the person like puts their hand over the person's mouth. So I was expecting like intense. I was expecting this book to be so intense. It's actually a very sweet BDSM romance. I believe that the hero who is dominant is actually a bit more of a feminine gay man, and he is just, the way that he's dominant is so interesting. I like seeing that kind of like fluidity and stuff. So just thought I would share that one. But actually all three books in this series have different aspects of BDSM in them. So good to know. And then there is Unbound by Cara McKenna. This one is very interesting. Our heroine is actually on this like hike where she's trying to hike these certain amount of distance. She's actually gotten really healthy and lost some weight, and she's feeling good about herself, and so she's going to do this hike, and she ends up getting hurt and stuck in the woods, and there's this hero who rescues her and brings her to his cabin, and he seems like not happy to have her there. And like the more that she's there, she begins to get these signs that he might be submissive and she might be into tying him up and dominating him a little bit. He specifically likes being tied up, and it was very interesting. So this one, okay, so this is the one I'm saying, like, this one is a bit more outside the realm of like the safety side of it. yes, there still are safe words and stuff, but we have a heroine who, like, she does not know what she's doing, and a hero who's, like, asking her to do certain things to him. So everything works out fine. I'm just saying, keep that in mind. Then there is Swan Lake by L.B. Alexander. There's actually 2 books out in this series so far. The third one, I am going to get an arc of it, but it's been pushed back a little bit. It was supposed to come out in April, or it's actually supposed to come out in March, and it's got pushed. But there's 2 books out so far, and this is about a girl who, she ends up, I think, discovering her boss is into BDSM, and so she takes on to be his submissive. So there's not too much else to say about that one. I don't want to spoil it, but this one, if you are someone who likes it when a dom has to safe word, this one has some very interesting conversations about that. I found where the author was going with this very interesting, and I actually struggled with it a bit because her take on it was not something I was used to. And I really appreciated that. I like when my thoughts are challenged. We'll say that. And then the last one I want to talk about, and again, this is another one that stuff doesn't exactly follow it perfectly, but that's going to be Robbie. And this is actually the first book in a 4-book series. Well, there's 6 books in the series, but 4 is about this one polyamorous relationship, and then there's 2 more that is about a different couple, but they all connect. So this is by Ella Frank, and Robbie, he's actually a carryover character from her Try series, which I also liked that series. That was like Gay for You, just all the drama. Like, I don't read a ton of Gay for You anymore, but that series was pretty epic. I loved it a lot. But anyway, Robbie is a party boy. He's a bartender at the bar of one of our other heroes, and he gets propositioned by this like celebrity chef whose name is Julian, and Julian is actually inviting him to dinner with him and his husband. So Julian and Priest are married. They've been together for a while, and they want Robbie to be their, like, kind of, we would say little boy, not like quite that, but they want him to be their, like, their boy, because Priest is very dominant. Julian is also dominant, but he's subservient to Priest. And Julian would like someone in their relationship that he can also be like a caretaker and like dom for. I know, this is weird. This book was so like outside of my comfort zone, but the way that their dynamic works and the kinky things that these 3 men do, I really need to reread this series. Like, I really do. It's been a few years, and I remember loving it. I binged all of them so fast because I was just so addicted to this triad, this relationship, and where it was going. There also is like a through line of like, because each book is like named after one of them. So there's Robbie, Julian, and Priest, and we find out more about each of them as we go through the series. And then the last one is called The Prick, the Priest, and the Princess or something, and it's all of them together, and I really enjoyed that. So there you go. There are some BDSM recommendations that kind of go the whole spectrum. I have many more that I have read. Definitely check out my playlist for like dark romance and taboo recommendations. I definitely have recommended plenty more before. I would love more recommendations if you have some for me. BDSM, I have to like be in the mood for it, but when I am in the mood, I'm in the mood. So thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure you like and subscribe. It is very important to me that you do, and we'll see you next time. Bye.